All right, Jason. The time has finally come. We are going to make a horror grading sheet today. We have both come in with our ideas of what we think, decides what is a great horror movie. And we're just going to throw some of those out here. So, Jason, why don't you tell me first some of your thoughts?
So I think one of the important things is around style. Okay. So a concept around this is with any horror movie, no matter what kind of variety of spooky you're going for, if it's suspense, if it's slasher, supernatural, anything like that, it has to be inherently cool, right?
Right.
There has to be some level of style that is attributed to it, even if we're abandoning practicality, going for something completely, just kind of off the wall. But if it's still like radical, if it's still cool, if it's still stylish, that's something that still sticks out for me. Kind of train of thought I went for this. There's a movie called Velocipaster. Okay. It is a shitty fucking movie about a pastor that gets infected with the thing, and then he turns into a velociraptor and kills people. It is like a low-budget B movie. Conceptually, though, fucking radical. So for me, that's a thing that would get some points on the board for it. It's got a style because it's something that's absolutely radical. It's not practical, but it's radical. Okay. And I think there's kind of like that, if it's not conventionally horror, it's got to have some kind of style to make up for the horror.
So style and like fucking go for it.
A little
basically,
bit, right?
Like,
I mean, shit, I would honestly put like Child's Play in that category, right? Where a fucking doll that's running around killing people. To me, that's kind of a full send into a category where it's like we got cool shit like voodoo going on, but we're going to put a serial killer inside of a child doll.
Yeah.
And granted, not as quite as much style, but conceptually, like that's a pretty cool, neat thing. Right. And then still kind of checks that box for me.
So do you think that is a grading point, or do you think that is like they fucking went for it, like bonus points if, X, right?
So maybe it's kind of the category for the style, right? So are we going for classic horror, are we going for suspense, or are we going full, like the full send? So maybe it's just a category to put into under style, right? Okay. So it's like, what type of horror movie are we looking at? Does it do the classic horror style? Does it do the slasher style? Does it do those well? And then, maybe we can just put the full send as just another category under that quote-unquote style.
Okay. So, all right. So we're deciding style, and then, like, if you go for... Okay. Kind of... Yeah. Okay. All right, so I thought an important thing was, like, as far as just these sheets in general, because I want to do more of these also for different categories of movies, like, just, like, what is this movie's job? Right? Which I think sort of falls under that style thing also, is like what is this supposed to do? Like, when we talk about with comedy, right? Like, this is just supposed to make you laugh. If it made you laugh, like, it pretty much did its job. Like, minimally, I think, you're at, like, 5 points at that point, right? So I guess we define, like, all right, so what is the horror movie's job, right? Is it inherently, like, to scare, right? Because if you watch a lot of horror movies and you're just not a person that, like, gets scared, per se, right? You're not going to, like, I wasn't fucking scared, zero, But, like, is it suspenseful? Do you not know what's going on? Does it, like, make you uncomfortable in any way? Or should it, I guess, right? Because, again, you could just be the dick.
Looking at you, the human centipede.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
Watch that movie and be comfortable.
Yeah. So I guess that's our thing. Like, so what are we deciding, like, the job of the horror movie is? Like, because I know we have, like, the subgenres of horror, I guess got some water there. We have the subgenres of horror of the the slasher, the more suspenseful, the gore, or I guess gore and slasher kind of go together, right? But
I feel like that can be a little abstract, right? Because sometimes it is still just the intent is to tell a specific story, and there might be some like horror elements to it, So it's like inherently it might not be like, oh, we're trying to make you, piss your pants kind of thing, but it could be we're just telling you a story with some shit that sucks in it, and sucks for the characters that we're witnessing the story of. That it has like some scary element. So I feel like it can kind of fit just like the job could be, to tell a story with horror elements. The job could be to show a bunch of brutal kills.
Yeah.
We kind of go into like some, body horror, really gory kind of stuff there. So I think it's just does it acknowledge what its like job is going to be maybe in one of those categories and how well it leans into that. Okay. Maybe.
So in that first thing, right, with style, so, you say it should fairly early kind of tell you what it is going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I say that, but how many horror movies have we watched where the first 45 minutes are just backstory and context and then.
Right. This is true. Yeah. But that can be a deduction.
Yeah, that's right? The job is to tell a story with those horror elements because we're getting all of that context around it and not just jumping into people getting chopped in half.
Right. So, basically, like, main question, what is this, right? Slasher, thriller, jump scares, sort of, right?
Some of those are just, hey, let's hang out for an hour and a half and just throw shit on screen to make you jump.
Right. How early is this established? Okay, yeah. How early is it established? Not to, like, step on you, but then I think the other thing I wanted to have kind of with that, or that ties me into that real quick, is just, like, does this movie forget what it is? Right, again, like you said, like sometimes it takes 45 fucking minutes,
right,
before they, figure out. So, like, so does this movie tell you what it is early and like sticks to it, and then like does it just forget what the fuck kind of movie it is, or are we focusing on like subplots of teenagers banging and somebody's dad's mad about it or some shit like that.
Well,
right?
No, it's a good point to bring up because I think there's some of those movies where it's like, interesting. The first 45 minutes of this have nothing to do with the last 45 minutes of this. Like they're very inconsequential and separate from each other.
Yeah.
So it's like, do we feel like we're experiencing the same story all the way through, or does it feel like at some point we've entered an upside down world where now it's just all the spooky stuff is happening?
Yes.
So maybe it's just the how is does the story like gradually be introduced and stay consistent, or does the horror aspect of it stay consistent throughout the movie, or do we suddenly just enter an alternate dimension where shit's scary?
Right. Does this feel like the same movie all the way through?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, that'd be a good thing to bring up with some of those horror movies because it's like, can we determine at what point we could cut the movie and be like, none of this had to matter. Like, at this point is where this movie started, and we could have rewritten the first, 30, 45 minutes, whatever of it.
All right, I like that.
Yeah.
So, all right, what's your next point?
So,
what's your next two since I stepped on you?
No, you're fine. So, kind of in that same vein, right? So, like, is the story, overarching, or at least the end result of the story, entirely inconsequential in universe? So basically, does it matter by the end of it? So I'm putting this kind of in the round of, does everybody die at the end and then there's nobody left alive to keep the story going, the tell of the legend? There's no twist at the end that's like, oh, there's going to be a sequel kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Does the story itself or does the end result of the story matter? Like, would anybody know?
So in this instance, you're saying like the legend of the scary thing is an important thing moving forward.
Well, just that, like, if something terrible happens and then nobody knows about it, did it really happen, kind of thing, So it's just like is there any reason to think that, like, number one, like if everyone just, if there's like a group of kids out that nobody knows where they went, and then we kill them all,
Yeah.
like would it ever matter? Like, would anyone ever find those kids? If they said, oh, we're gonna be in X and we're at Y, they all die, we never find the bodies or whatever. There's no dot that would, even after the credits roll, connect it back to where it doesn't matter. There would never be a sequel based off of anyone finding these kids or the legend living kind of thing. So maybe it puts it in the category of a could there be a sequel, should there be a sequel kind of thing. Because if nothing, it really ties up our knot at the end. If there's nothing meaningful by the end of this and just everybody's dead, it's like, cool, everyone's dead, now what? Like, what happens in this world now that these people are dead? Like, do things remain haunted? Does the serial killer still remain at large? Like, what happens next? So maybe it's just a something around that.
Okay. Does it make it a bad movie if the legend can't live on, or a bad ending rather?
I think the plot has to kind of like make that meaningful in some way. Like, if you were accidentally,
it has to make everybody being dead meaningful.
Yeah.
Like, if that is the ending.
Yeah. Because otherwise, like, if it's just like a spooky thing happened, everyone dies. If I have to think about like that world, that universe to where that spooky thing happened, it's like the world just continues spinning. Like, nobody's gonna know that this crazy thing happened. So why does it matter that I know this crazy thing happened?
Right.
Kind of thing. So I guess I just think a little bit about like the real world impact. It's kind of neat when we see those sequels and there's like news stories about them, that we see from like the movie prior, where it's like, oh, bodies found in XYZ, and stuff like that, where it's like actions, consequences, the story in general just matter later and not just for the length of the movie.
Okay. So within the universe, lasting impact, or if there isn't lasting impact, is that meaningful in some way?
Yeah.
So like, if we're thinking like revenge horror type plot, right, where basically like, the whole goal of the villain, like, okay, so I could see where that could be established of like, what if the scariest thing to this person is like, having died and no one knows where they are, and like maybe they have like someone dependent on them, and but they chose to go do their one thing. But I guess even so, that's the lasting impact, real world impact, right? So okay, so practical impact of the story, like okay.
It's kind of
I'm
like
trying
that,
to
right?
think of how to word it, right?
Yeah.
Because obviously that it can't be like a 2-paragraph thing, like so
kinda if you think about it, really.
So
does the story matter to the world?
Okay, yeah. Does the story matter within that world, right?
Yeah.
Does the story matter as far as the ending, sequel potential? Well, but like you don't want more points based on like sequel potential, right? Because half the time sequels fucking suck.
Yeah.
Right. So like, how as far as the ending, family members / survivor stories, impact on them, / community, impact on community.
Looking at you, Camp Crystal Lake.
Exactly, impact on community. AKA Camp Crystal Lake, right? Okay, I dig that. What's your next one?
Sure. So next one's a little bit more general. So this is just around visual effects. So practical versus digital, how well they're utilized kind of thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've seen movies like Alien 3 where we decided to go down the CGI route and get an alien that
was way too early.
Looked like dog shit.
Yeah.
We've seen some practical effects that look just, hands down absolutely dynamite.
Also in that universe.
We have seen practical effects that look like garbage.
Yeah.
So I think that's an easy category for us, is just as far as any of the special effect, visual effect kind of stuff there. What was used, how well was it utilized, and
based on the year too, right? Like,
yeah. You always got to keep that context in mind.
Yeah, that's fun. I also had that in there. So,
Yeah.
Or special effects utilized to full potential.
Yeah.
Right?
You know, inherently, again, I'm going off just some of the recent ones we've kind of talked about, but with Child's Play,
Yeah.
the Chucky doll was animatronic stuff.
Right.
They had like 6 different Chucky dolls. You know, they used all kinds of different strategies to get it to move and, you know, kind of do stuff in a way. And, outside of me not enjoying the Chucky movie as much just from a story perspective,
Yeah.
the practical effect perspective there is extremely, extremely cool.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that's kind of where my mindset has come in with that type of thing is, you know, you regardless of the story, anything else, you could have, you know, some level of practical effect or, you know, special effect digital that just really fucking nails a scene or, you know, is used repeatedly, whatever.
Yeah.
And that can be meaningful. So,
yeah. And yeah, I mean, because that's the thing, like budget may play into that, but it's just like, well, how appropriately did you use your budget? Did you go get some, like, you know, famous person to be in this movie, and then, you know, that in turn made you have less budget to put on the stuff that does actually matter to the movie if you're making a fucking slasher movie?
What was the James Bond movie that had the shitty water because they decided to go full CGI? Which one was that?
Oh, Spy Who Loved Me, right? Like, he pops out of that submarine, and then
I was saying, is that the one where he had like where he was like surfing kind of thing across the water? Like, it was.
Oh, the Brosnan movie, Die Another Day.
Yeah,
there is a scene in Spy Who Loved Me where he pops up on this, like, out of this submarine. It's like before the end of the movie, like before like the main conflict at the end, right? But like, he pops out and he's kind of like this, and you can tell it's like the worst green screen ever behind him. No, but yeah, Die Another Day. They melt all those like icebergs and shit, and he's like surfing, and the water's like this like shade of blue that you've never seen.
They tried so hard to sell it like it was the coolest technology. They had the special features. Me and Tyler were watching, and they were talking about it, and like they were so impressed with themselves.
Oh yeah,
and it sucked. Like, and some of that is just from the time,
right? But
like, man, was it just the wrong call?
Yeah, no, really. Okay, so one big thing, and surprise, if you listen to any of these, Halloween seems to be my go-to on this thing. But the first Halloween movie, I still think is just like one of the best.
Dynamite.
Do we have an established main character we care about? We establish in Halloween Laurie as this girl who's seemingly a decent person, puts others before herself, you know, gets good grades in school, babysits, like does her responsibilities, seems to be a decent enough friend, right? Not to say like the others deserved to die per se, but, you know, operating within those like horror movie rules.
She did not commit a cardinal sin.
She did not fuck, right? Or, you know, go try to fuck. Which is like a big no-no in a horror movie, right?
We don't do that here.
You know, whereas her friends are, you know, a little more irresponsible, careless, put themselves in compromising positions. Laurie watches the child that Annie's supposed to be watching because Annie wants to go bang her boyfriend. Annie gets dead. Yeah. And, you know, so there's that whole deal, right? So I feel like a big problem with Friday the 13th movies, having just watched 6 of them, is we have like almost a different main character every fucking time. We barely know the main character. We don't give a shit what happens to them. You know, we don't really do it. You know, whereas we were saying, so like, it is kind of a double-edged sword, right? The whole thing about like, you know, doesn't forget it's a horror movie. Do we just do a bunch of character development? But like, we still need some level of it,
right? We still have to care about the person who we're, you know, kind of using as that viewpoint. Yeah,
it's a tight wire, or what do they call it? A high wire. You know, what do you call that? The fucking circus.
Tightrope.
Yeah, you're walking a tightrope with that, right? Like, you don't want so much that it feels like it's just a movie about, you know, fucking, we all date people.
Yeah. Unless we're specifically doing this from like the Thing's point of view, right? Like, if we're like from the horror elements point of view, and that's the point, you know, sure, maybe we don't get as much backstory, but typically we usually frame this as just like an inconsequential person who gets a tiny bit of backstory, and then we kill off all their friends.
Right. Laurie.
Right.
You know, but you gave a shit about Laurie, and she was protecting the kids,
we had
and that
a
was
reason.
her main priority.
She owned up to her role.
they're creating the stakes for her with like, you know, now she's responsible for both kids. You know, she was injured. She's running across the front yard yelling, "Help me." You know, no one seems to be coming out, but like Lori is, you know, our girl. Like, you know, we're in this, we're rooting for her.
Yeah.
And so I think that's an important part. Like, right? So would you say that's an important part? So we need.
I'm 100% aligned there. Yeah.
Okay. So, do we care? First of all, is there an established main character?
Yeah.
Right. Because that's another thing I feel like. Again, it's all going to be in like what I've watched recently. Like as you've been saying, like just stuff we've watched recently. First thing that comes to mind, but you know, Friday the 13th. We don't even know who our fucking, you know, last survivor is going to be.
Yeah.
You know, until back 30 minutes of that movie.
And you couldn't have guessed it. There was no reason to suspect any single one of those people, except for Kevin Bacon. You knew they were going to kill him off. but for everybody else, like you knew.
He gets too much pussy, man.
Yeah.
That's just against the rules in this universe.
But yeah, there was no way to be able to determine, you
right.
know, up until it just happens and the story gives it to you who the final survivor is going to be.
Yeah. So, established main character. And, you know, do we give a shit about them?
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things I definitely won't think should be on there is catharsis is where...
So definitely don't think should be on
No,
there?
I definitely do think should be on there. Sorry.
I heard definitely don't think, and I was like, well, why are you saying
this shouldn't be on here anyways.
How much cotton candy's in the movie?
It's very important to me.
Very important to me that's not on this list.
Yeah. But catharsis is a good thing to put around horror movies, right?
Okay.
So that's around just like the, you know, the scary things are happening, they're present in the world, and then kind of that release you get from it. So whether it's, you know, everyone being killed off, whether it's the good vanquishing evil, it's the sunrise at the end of the day, you know, last survivor kind of thing. There, I think, has to be just like a, I guess that kind of like positive or just very like not tying conclusion around things. That's just like a, you know, it's just maybe that clean wrap up after the you know, the climax kind of thing, but just something that really settles, I guess, the climax and puts it in a way that's like a, you know, all was right with the world, all's calm on the Eastern Front kind of thing.
Necessary, or like, because I also feel like, okay, so like end of Halloween,
mm-hmm.
you know, he goes and looks down, Michael's gone.
Yeah.
Right. Like, fun twist. Now,
There's
that's
still
obviously leaving open for a
Yeah.
sequel, right?
So I guess there's still like that impending doom, but there is still kind of like that, because he's gone, it's still like that good has vanquished evil kind of thing, because he's no longer like an imminent threat, I guess. So maybe it's just the way that it, even if it's just postponing, you know, the entity, whatever it might be, that it still feels a little bit like a victory. So maybe that's kind of the category around it. But I understand, yeah, there's definitely going to be movies to where it's like the point is that it's not like a clear, you know, conclusion. There's not a clear victory. It's a little ambiguous to leave open either, you know, final, you know, seconds before the end twists, or that. But yeah, gotta be something around kind of.
So
in
was
there.
there like a? So like, was there a final like the big battle, right? Like final boss battle.
Yeah.
I guess kind of what you're getting at, right? Like, Say it again, but in different words.
Does good vanquish evil, or no? Because it puts it more, I think, into like a category rather than the criteria, right?
See, I feel like that it puts it more into this, like, I feel like that's more of a thing if we're going for like a hero's arc.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because I mean, it is horror. It is horror.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know that we need like the big release. I think honestly, like a horror, like anything in this genre, probably gets bonus points if you are still on edge the whole movie, and if like by the end of the movie, you know, Michael Myers does get up and walk off, and you go like,
oh shit.
Oh, you know, like if you left the movie like still uncomfortable, I think that's probably like, but I don't know, you know, we'll put these together, assign our point values, but I think that's like kind of a bonus points thing almost, you know?
Yeah. No, I see where
Yeah.
you're coming from there.
Okay. Which, yeah, that's the thing I was saying. Factor of being uncomfortable suspense, right? So we can kind of go into that. Not to be cliche. Going back to Halloween, Michael's always kind of present. You know, he may not be killing you the whole time,
But he's nearby.
but he is adding something to the movie. Of, you know, we're always kind of looking. Hey, whoa, she's looking out her classroom window. He's just standing there. You know, like he's always kind of present. I don't know what point value we could assign to that and what have you, but like I feel like that is a factor, right? Like
How impending is the doom?
How impending is the doom? Sounds like a fucking great opening line for that, for sure. How impending is the doom? And the other part of that being, so like, you know, depending on whatever its gimmick is, like whether it's the slasher thriller, you know, slow burn type deal, you know, like is it still ever present? Like, you know, in these movies, like I feel it probably shouldn't. You probably shouldn't be over comfortable, you know, unless that happened to be like, you know, the choice the movie was making of like, hey, let's like lull them into, you know,
Feeling
everything's
safe.
fine.
Yeah.
You know, maybe we had a general scare in the beginning, but like, okay, let's lull you back to sleep here. Everything's fine. And then, oh shit, you know. Yeah, so you know, how impending is the doom is really a sweet line, honestly. I don't know. You see where I'm coming from though? Like how would we kind of figure out our boundaries in there?
Yeah. Is this something to where it's like we're going to accept that it only shows up like, you know, once every 45 minutes and it only happens when we need to move the plot forward in a certain direction? Or is this like a, you know, we are constantly seeing the entity, the horror aspect of it nearby,
Yeah.
you know, kind of driving the, you know, what's going to come.
Even if it's just driving it for you, like, because the characters can go through.
Yeah,
and be
characters have
aloof.
no idea. We've seen
You know.
movies where, you know, the surviving character like didn't even know the rest of the movie was happening until
Friday
an
the
hour
13th.
in. Exactly. God, we can't get away from the recent ones, but it's such a good point, right?
Yeah.
It's like you like the final character or even just any of the characters, like they don't know the rest of the movie is happening.
Yeah.
Like there's no impending danger for them. They don't know that they should be scared. They're going about their daily lives.
Yeah.
You know, that's not very impending doom from that character's perspective. But for us, knowing that they're taking them down one by one,
Yeah.
impending doom.
Yeah. So how impending is the doom? Do you spend a good bit of the movie, or I won't write it yet. Do you spend a good bit of the movie kind of being nervous for this?
Are you
character?
bracing for impact or?
Right. Okay. Yeah. Even better. Yeah. You know, are you bracing for it? How impending is the doom? Are you bracing for impact? You know, is this character like, you know, constantly in danger, whether they know it or not?
Right.
Yeah. Announced. I think I got it.
I got faith in you. There's no spell check on this notepad, so.
Yeah. God, fucking. Sometimes if you shake it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, just corrected. Yeah, even unbeknownst to them. Yeah, and we'll figure out what shit's worth, but yeah. Okay, yeah, what you got?
So next one I had around, I'm not sure how to put this one, but it's kind of around like how much mystery is left over. Have we revealed all of our secrets around the thing, or is the thing still like an ambiguous? You know, like we don't know enough.
Which I think should be points off.
Yeah.
Honestly, like I think it's fine to leave some of that to guess during, but I think by the end of the movie. Like
we got to have a good
that's
idea.
The conclusion, I think, that you were talking about earlier. That's like some conclusion I would want, right?
Yeah.
Like, what are the rules of this thing? Which is kind of like the thing we were talking about last week, right? Like, you get a thing, right? What is this movie's thing? Do we know? Like, what are the rules to this scary thing,
Yeah.
right? That kind of I think those tie in together, right?
Yeah. What's it allowed to do? What's it not allowed to do? Does it
Yeah.
get superpowers at the end just because we are out of screen time and we need to wrap something up?
Right.
Does the hero get superpowers out of some fucking reason to wrap up the story?
Yeah. So like I would say what's the what are
Do we know the rules? How well do we follow them?
yes, what are the rules? Do we make up our own rules at the end because we want to conclude something?
Yeah. Finale rules.
These and plot holes, could be points off, right?
Yeah. There should just be a plot hole section.
Because like
How many fucking plot holes can we shove into this movie?
right, could be points off. Because like I don't think plot holes always should be points off, but like how egregious are they?
Right.
Like was it like, well, they shot him in the head, but here he is.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
looking at
it's-
you, The Last of Us Part 2 with Tommy.
Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, all right, yeah. How many more do you got?
I got just a couple. So I feel like the Sound of Music should definitely be something. Do we have a good score that kind of accompanies the tones that we're setting for this, or
Halloween.
yeah. Man, if you have a theme song for your movie, like you are already off to a good start. Like
Yep.
just fucking do it. Get some people in the studio together, write a banger, and then just drop it in the movie 14 times. Like there's no way around it. It will always land.
Really? Yeah. So score. Right?
Yeah, score is just important. How good the score is / how well it fits the tone of the thing.
The score
If
fit,
we get some trap beat
tone-wise.
or something versus some eerie piano notes, depending on the scene, it could be effective and still work, right? As far as being accompanying that tone properly.
Yeah.
Some of those hardcore murder scenes, you get a little bit more aggressive music, and that's kind of lit. But if you have, I don't know, it just has to fit the scene properly.
Yeah. I mean, do you think with Halloween, like, every time you see, like, Michael's kind of walking along, like, da 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 do 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 do, I mean, yeah,
It just lands.
yeah. Anyway, okay, so the score fit, and then, yeah, go ahead and just empty yours out here. Yeah.
So one, I think we can kind of talk about this a little bit, but around something that's is it original or at least creative? If it's reusing something that's like an already established, I guess, formula, and kind of having a little bit of a mindfulness around the time period it came out of. But is this somebody else's movie with a different coat of paint, basically, or are we creating something new? Do we have a new concept? Are we doing something fun and interesting, or are we, doing the tried and true method of things?
Originality.
It's a good thing to just to have,
Mhm.
a category around.
I like it. Yeah.
Because even if it's them using something that we're pretty familiar with, but like they do add something to it that makes it cool, that elevates it to some level,
Or if it's a cover,
right,
if you will, like say the Rob Zombie Halloween, like, is it doing it justice?
yeah,
Like, are you putting your own spin on it while like still paying homage to, the what came before?
right,
Oh, the thing you wrote down over here last week when we were kind of talking about it, you said like how good / satisfying are the kills and scares,
that is important. Which I feel like is kind of tough.
which almost goes in with the special effects, kind of, right?
Because not every movie is going to have like a ton of kills, and that might not necessarily be the highlight of the horror we're trying to exhibit. So I don't want to necessarily put that as its own category, because sometimes it's not about the kill, it's about the fright.
Yeah.
But I do think that probably would fit more so under the practical effects, because for a kill to be a good kill, it's got to look cool, it's got to sound cool, it's got to feel cool, and the cinematography that comes along with it, has to be impactful. So think that that might nestle in with that as opposed to being its own thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and the other thing you had kind of that we had jotted down, talking about what I had already, was the how well it utilizes its one thing, its gimmick, whatever. So like that's definitely something to add to what our parameters are, right? Of like, is there lost potential on something they could do with the gimmick? Not a horror movie, but for example, Crystal Skull, Indiana Jones, right? The whole magnet thing, they're running around shooting guns and like, lost potential there on like, bullets just curving away. They can't shoot Indy because unless they fucking shoot over here and he's over here, right?
Right.
Like, is there a lost potential for something super fucking cool? I think is important to do that, right?
Yeah. And honestly, that comes a little bit even with, are you following your thing's rules? If we have rules set up, are you following those rules, or do the rules not apply just to fit the scene?
Yeah. Just going to jot lost potential down here next to that one.
Sure.
And then, yeah. So, I mean, I think that's it. Because we kind of know, because the other thing I written down was like, you're talking about, are there too many weird things? But like we're saying, what are the rules? Like we'll catch that, right? If there are too many weird things, like that's obviously like, well, we established this, and then they added laser eyes, and that didn't make any sense.
You know
right?
what? Cabin in the Woods. That was too many things.
It was too many things. Absolutely. I really felt
it had
like
some interesting things just as their own set pieces, but like, man, too many things.
Honestly, yeah. I think one last thing it could be, and it definitely goes in like probably we partner it along with like the how impending is the doom, right? Like, also like, is this, and it's sort of really it kind of brackets in with what are the rules, right? Because like how realistic to life is this, right? Like I feel like Michael Myers you can kind of tie into real life.
Yeah.
Right. There's
He's
a guy
just
with
a big
a knife.
ass dude. Yeah. That could be anyone.
Exorcist can be like kind of scary because like whether you believe in like God or not, right? You might have some belief that there's ghosts, such things,
Spooky,
demonic
scary
possession.
skeletons.
Right. Yeah. Like, like just the prime example there, like, so like how close to life is it, and like, does it make you hesitate to turn your light off when you're going to bed?
Yeah.
Type of thing. Does it stick with you?
Is it too far away from real life? Have you not stepped in an elevator since you watched the movie Devil?
Right. Yeah. So like, I don't know. Yeah. Relatable almost seems like a weird thing to say. But like, how close to home is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Something we can jot down.
Could this happen to you?
How close to home? Realism. Yeah, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, now we can just kind of go through and. So, in review. Number 1 is plot. Number 1A. Could we cut significant chunks and get the same story? That's worth up to a half point. 1B is a story inconsequential to its universe. That is worth up to 1 point. 1C, what are the rules? What's the gimmick? Do we have too many gimmicks? Originality with gimmick. Have we seen it before? Lost potential on gimmick. AKA, this is just a placeholder. Crystal Skull, bullet magnets, worth up to 2 points. D, there are changes made at the end. AKA, finale rules just to wrap something up. Worth up to 0.25 points. 1D, or whoops, 1E. Forgot to change that one. Plot holes are some are acceptable, but there is a difference between lazy writing and a coincidental plot hole, worth up to 0.25 points. Are the special effects utilized to their full potential given the time period? Were the kills, scares satisfying, or left a lot to be desired? Worth up to 1 point. 2B, score. Does music fit the moment? Worth up to 1 point. Number 3. Do we have an established main character, even if the antagonist of said horror movie is the main character? Do we care about them? Good character development, etc. Worth up to 2 points. Number 4, how impending is the doom? Is the character or characters constantly in danger, or even unbeknownst to them? Even unbeknownst to them. I should say if even unbeknownst to them. How close to home is the doom? Example, guy with knife or tremors. Guy with... You know what would be better almost there? Guy with knife equals scary in real life, right? How close to home is the doom? Example, guy with knife equals scary in real life.
Yep, that fits.
Worth up to 2 points. Okay, I think we got it.
All right.
So let's do the math real quick. Make sure. 0.51, 1.5 plus 2 would be 3.5 plus 0.25 plus 0.25. We'd be at 4. 1 point. 1 point. We'd be at 6. 2 would be at 8. 2 would be at 10. So we didn't fuck up the math.
Yep, Content
This adds
Crisis
up to
crew
10.
can count to 10.
Even with decimals. All right, cool. So I like this, and we'll probably drop this, we're going to cut the shit out of it because there's a lot of gaps and such. But, we'll probably drop this Halloween, just in time to not use it on any of our horror movies that we reviewed all month. But that's fine because we'll use it in the future, and we're going to try to change up some of the shit we do month to month anyway this coming year. I have some ideas that we can also talk about after we're done. But, yeah. So cool. Hopefully you stuck around for this. Maybe it's not even a fucking podcast because we did just talk a lot. It might just be our horror grading sheet. But, you know what? We recorded it, so there's proof that whatever. All right. Consequences Hotline, yahoo.com. Fucking inquire about why we made certain decisions. We love to talk about what certain people, where certain people think we're wrong on this shit, right? That'd be cool. But yeah, Twitter, Instagram, Constant Crisis, you'll find us. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. Thanks, bye. And we'll just cut that. Except now we'll leave it because it's fun. Of course, they can't hear me. So